All right, for city staff, I've started a recording for this meeting. I'm going to take down the unshare of the screen. Commissioners, I show the following commissioners present: Franklin Scott, Linda Waddell, Quentin Brown, Tracy Lamont. There's nobody in the waiting room, so I'll turn it over to the vice chair.
Troy, will you repeat I don't see a listing. Will you repeat the commission members again, please? Scott, Waddell, Lamont.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Waddell, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Lamont are present. No other commissioners are in the waiting room. That is 4 with a quorum. The chairman's not present. So I was notifying the vice chair that the meeting is now being recorded and is open live on Facebook. And Commissioner Young is coming in right now.
Just so you know, city staff, the script that is genuinely given to the chair or vice chair for the meeting. So it may be a little, what's the word, unorthodox today. Unless you can figure out a way to email it to me, that'd be fine. We all kind of got a gist of how it's supposed to go, but I do think there is some legal jargon in our verbiage that needs to be read. But like I said, I don't have any of that currently. Okay.
All right, we'll make sure you get it.
Okay, so if you want to email it to me, just let me know once that email gets there, and we'll take a brief second for me to print it out, and then we can go from there.
I don't know that I have access to it right now because it's in the chair and vice chair's booklets.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't receive a booklet or anything, but you know, hey, the show must go on. I guess welcome to the Minimum Housing Commission. Welcome to the, thank you for all the commissioners and people who have shown up. Per what our normal chair does and how we normally do the standard protocols, the Minimum Housing Commission is interested in the ground up of the property. I do believe that per the last meeting, we were discussing some of the revisions to the writing of I guess, the script that the attorney reads. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to add to the agenda. Do I need to make a motion to add to the agenda, attorney?
It's probably best, yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the agenda a approval of the new script, to which allows consent to the owners. But we have 2 scripts currently. The attorney sent one right before the meeting. Has everyone had a chance to see that, to the commissioners? I did take the liberty of printing it off, and I can read it for the minutes if necessary.
And if I could interject.
Let me hold on a second, Mr. Baker. Let me hold on. I don't see the court reporter. Is there someone here representing the court reporter?
If I could just say, I had to go out and come back in just to get in because there was something weird happening.
Give me just a second. Let me call the court reporter. The court reporter will be on in just a second. If Vice Chair, if you wouldn't mind, stand at ease, because we can't record the minutes.
Commissioner Brown, Tony is sending you that email right now, Tony Jones, that you had requested.
Thank you, ma'am. just stand by. I'm gonna print this off. Stand by.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Chairman Isikoff, we'll give it just a second. Vice Chair Commissioner Brown had called the meeting to order. The court reporter is not present, so we have asked the commission to stand at ease until the court reporter can get on to record the minutes.
All right, we'll stand at ease then. Thank you. And thank you, Quentin, for getting the meeting started. I was having some technological issues. And do we have everyone else from the commission here?
We have Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Waddell, Vice Chair Brown, Commissioner Lamont, and Commissioner Young.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair. This is Judy Decker. I am here.
Hey, Judy, thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, the Vice Chair, Commissioner Brown, did tell everyone he was making a copy or printing something when he had called the meeting to order. So I think he'll step back here in a second.
I think I see.
Now.
Yep. Hey, Quentin, how you doing?
So
I'm good.
we do have the court reporter that is recording minutes, so we can continue.
Thank you, and Quentin, thanks for getting things started. So going through, first of all, welcome everyone. This is the April meeting of the Greensboro Minimum Housing Standards Commission. We are going to be examining cases on today's docket that inspectors have found housing code violations for. This is everything that's above the ground in terms of structures, buildings, houses, things like that. So what we're looking for when you come before us is a strong plan to fix those violations that the inspector has found. We're looking for details, what contractors you've hired, what permits you've gotten, things like that. And we'll go through each case, and the homeowner and anyone else who wants to speak on a given case is welcome to speak in turn. We're doing things virtually due to COVID, and that's something in a second. I understand another commissioner has a motion on that. But we'll be doing everything virtual due to COVID. So I just ask if you can try not to speak over each other and identify yourself at the beginning of each statement. So that just makes it easier for us all to understand each other. I'd also ask if you could turn off cell phones, any laptops that might make noise, things like that. That just helps us all understand each other better and get things down for the record. Our first order of business is minutes from our previous meeting have been circulated. Commissioners, are there any motions regarding that?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you. And I heard a second
I second that.
from Mr. Young. Call the question. We'll call vote.
Councilmember or Commission Member Young,
Yes.
Commission Member Scott,
Yes.
Commission Member Waddell,
Yes.
Commission Member Lamont,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
and Chairman Isikoff.
Yes, that
Thank you.
motion passes unanimously. If there are any changes to the agenda.
Yeah, we actually were going to be talking about the script changes, as well as I was going to make a motion, and I think I'll make that motion now to amend the agenda forthwith to open it up to a comments section that would allow people from the public to get a certain amount of time. Maybe we should talk about that, but my motion does stand to open that to
Sure.
what they call public comment.
And Quentin, I appreciate you spearheading the efforts on revising that language. Normally, I put that administrative stuff at the end of a meeting, but given the nature of what you're proposing and how it might impact how we handle cases today, I think it might make sense to handle that on the front end. Do you feel that's the same?
I definitely think it's something we should definitely iron out.
Okay, so let's put that on the agenda before we go into our cases.
And also, Peter, also the other part of the motion was to talk about, before we get started, we can either do it now or at the end of the meeting. It just depends on what the commission wants to talk on, is an open comment section. I would like to have that addressed in the beginning. So that way, kind of like with the council meeting, they have their opening, they open it to comments. And on some other boards that I serve on, we open up a limited amount of time to individuals to have comments from the community.
Sure, and I'll say, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I always favor public involvement. I'm just not sure, and I'll defer to city council, our city attorney, on what the process is for with that. We haven't done that in the past, but I'm not opposed to it.
The public comment period for a city council member is created by statute. There's not a public council or not a public comment period created for this commission by statute, and don't think it would be appropriate, because the purpose of
Don't
this
have-
commission is to review appeals from the inspectors to either modify or approve orders issued by the inspectors. Or I believe there's the, Troy, you're gonna tell me the new program on rehabilitation?
The receivership, they have the authority
Receivership,
to
thank you.
refer receivership to the court.
Thank you. So the commission's role is limited to those purposes by statute. And there's really no need for public comment other than for the commission to hear evidence on a specific case. The commission has no authority to create policy regarding staffing or regarding the laws that govern this process. So I don't see the need for public comment as created by statute for the council.
So
And I appreciate that, but I actually, Quentin, I agree with you that there should be, if it's administrative procedures, if it's, oh, sorry, I think
listening.
Quentin.
Oh no, I heard you. I was listening to you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, is there a way, not commenting on any particular case, but I think Quentin is what you're getting at, that you want people to be able to say, here's how we think it could run better?
Well, actually, I wanted them to bring, I just want to be able to have a public comment section where they can say, hey, this is what I encountered, this is what happened to me, so on and so forth. I think it'll be viably important to the commission to be able to hear side what is presented to us by staff. The reason why I say that, now I understand that the attorney said there is no need, but I'm wondering, is the rule book say you can't? Does it say you can? Does it say you can't? And go ahead.
So
I'm
what
listening.
he's saying is the statute doesn't give us authority to
ability?
have.
If that's the case, is there a way for someone to be able to bring a case to the commission that didn't have to go through a time limit? Are there a way that a person can appeal to a commission board. That, let's say they're in the middle of a case and they want to appeal it to the commission board and they don't want to have to wait the time to accrue a fees that normally happens. That's a better question. Maybe staff can help that. Can a standard citizen appeal to the commission board because they are in agreement with city staff department?
And
the
and I'll
city-
just
the
say, I
city-
don't, oh, sorry.
The city ordinances do allow any citizen that has received a decision letter from an inspector of the city, whether that is a order to repair or a notice of condemnation or a nuisance order of their enforcement, that decision is allowed to be appealed to the Housing Commission within 10 days of that order that is in the ordinance. Outside of that order, they are not allowed to appeal.
So they get 10 days if they receive something in the mail that they don't agree with to come in front of the commission. Are they made aware of that?
It's
Or
in
is
the
it just in
letter.
writing?
It's in the letter, and that's the statutory requirement.
Okay.
And I think that's what we're getting at is you can't let people jump to the front of the line.
Right.
But at the same time, I hear what you're saying about, you've raised some good points about, the language of things being accessible to everyone and things like that. And if the public has concerns about that, that's something I understand. And the public should be able to say, hey, we don't like what you're doing.
I'm 100%. That's exactly where we're going with it.
But I think it would have to be limited to general kind of administrative comments as opposed to about a particular case.
Right. We limited it to, hey, we can't do anything for your case, but you can at least explain to us your experience or what's going on.
And it's not, we wouldn't be a decision-making
Right.
entity at that point. We'd be hearing complaints from the public or comments or hopefully commendation from the public. I'd like everyone to feel like they have a voice.
Yeah.
I've got a concern from the legal perspective. And first of all, and I'm gonna try and be, I don't intend to be harsh when I say you don't have the authority to create a public comment section. Your authority is limited to hearing appeals, reviewing orders, and the program that Troy mentioned before. The purpose of that is that if you allow someone to publicly comment either on the process and it touches on their case, unless they are under oath or unless they somehow bias one of the commission members as a quasi judicial member, if you are biased by information that is not evidence presented to you, you also run the risk that you may have to recuse yourself based upon information that you heard outside of the hearing. And I believe that's the purpose. This is a quasi judicial commission. It's not a policy setting commission, and you have limited authority. So under the enabling statutes that create this commission, I do not believe you have the authority to create a public comment period. And I think it may very well upset the purpose of the commission if you get information that may apply to a case and it's not been presented under oath.
Okay. Is there more research that can be done towards this or no?
I mean, I'm happy to look into it. If you want to hold it open for the next meeting, I'll be happy to look into it. I am confident on what the authority of the commission is, that it's quasi-judicial board. And I'm confident that the enabling statutes don't create a public comment period. Whether you can do it by option, I'm happy to look into it. But if you want to defer that issue, I'll be happy to look into it some more.
Council sounds pretty like negative on the whole idea, but I generally understand that beyond just listening to these very super specific cases, else within the whole quasi judicial format, we're supposed to be like studying the housing conditions. I'm actually looking at the first paragraph, and not to get into what's actually written here and stuff, but we have how are we supposed to understand what is going on beyond the individual cases that appear before us as they're presented by the city and as residents respond? if we don't have the ability to do just a tad more. Without going into the whole judicial thing and like prejudicing this and that, which I sort of understand, surely there has to be a way for a citizen to come before us and say, this is what I think. And rather than shutting down a resident from being able to speak their mind, and apparently, like, because I'm not hearing like, so if a citizen wants to say something, maybe it's in regard to let's skip the specifics of their case, but the process and so on. There isn't an immediate way of doing it. That's what I'm getting. So stuck between the whole legal thing and what they can't do, and their ability to just say like, hey, maybe I have a suggestion that would make the process better and make the work of city employees even easier. They wouldn't even be able to say that, according to what I'm hearing. So I just can't believe that the process is that closed. And I would just ask Mr. Baker if there's a way of really, if we can look into that in a more positive way to see, surely there's a way that someone coming in can actually offer positive suggestions to the city and to us even as commissioners.
Mr. Young, I appreciate that. And I want to make very clear, I'm making a delineation between people jumping to the front of the line and having their cases heard and advocating for their particular case. But like Mr. Young, you've raised good points about, for instance, translator services and making sure everything is translated properly. That's an administrative thing that just helps us run more fairly. And I think what you're saying is commissioners can discuss it. You've raised that point, but shouldn't a member of the public also be able to come and say, hey, I don't think I'm getting adequate translator services?
Commissioners also, and Mr. Baker, if you wanted to chime in on it, there's a lot of avenues that I think from what I'm hearing y'all speak to, just from the staff liaison side, that is available for the public. The public does contact us quite often. They contact myself as the manager, and they also contact Mr. Wilson as the director of the neighborhood development department. But we also have the city manager's office. And of course, with the process of how the inspectors and how the employees do their job, we have to follow the council manager form of government, which means, you know, we follow that process. So the public does come in quite often and does, you know, share processes with us, and we do give that consideration. So we do have internal controls that we try our best to be very responsive to the public. And I just wanted to give you that assurances, because it sounds like that some of you may not have those assurances. But Mr. Baker can add to that if there's other opportunities throughout the city in which public can be heard, including public comment at 2 city council meetings a month.
It looks like the council is looking for that. Now, council, this means that we need to petition the city council to change some of the ordinances that allows us to govern. We are going to need that guidance. I believe that would fall underneath your administrative work, or you would tell us what we need to do. Is that correct?
Potentially. I'm not sure the city council can give you that authority. And I'll go back to what Commission Member Young said. The Housing Commission is authorized to study rental rates, the need for reconditioning or condemnation, and other housing conditions in the city. So if those are issues on your agenda or that you want to put on your agenda, and if we have someone that wants to speak to those issues before the Housing Commission, would absolutely invite them to speak and make time for those issues to be considered. Whether that's in the form of a public comment section, or if someone has notified staff or notified a commission member that they want to speak to something that touches on one of those issues that's within your authority, then I would definitely invite them to do so, and we make a motion to add them to the agenda so that can be discussed. And I think you can achieve that without there being simply an open meeting time or setting time aside from the commission's business to hear the cases. I think you can achieve what you're trying to get to without setting aside time for what you would call a public comment period, or what we have called here the public comment period.
So-
With that said, as far as whether the city council can authorize it by ordinance, I'm not certain that they can. I think it may require state law change, but in all candor, don't know the specific answer to that, but happy to look at it.
All right, so what you're saying is per the list of things that we're supposed to study, if you could distribute that this week or next week, then from there, I would imagine, Peter, that we could put together at the beginning of every agenda, an open place where perhaps we are studying these things continuously, where we are looking at stuff and inviting in people. If someone has a question, we can then, I guess, educate the public on some of these things and also hear their experiences. Is that what I'm hearing you're saying?
Well, when you say hear their experiences, my concern is that if they get close to touching on an ongoing case or a past case, well, I'm gonna take out a past case. If they start to touch on an ongoing case, my concern is that if they give unsworn testimony, that the commission may be swayed by their comments, and I'm concerned that that would be inappropriate. So I would just want to make sure that any discussion before the commission is related to, again, the rental rates, the need for conditioning and condemnation, or other housing conditions within the city, without getting into specifics of a case.
Mr. Brown, under those circumstances, like, could you advise us as well as any resident who is appearing before us about those conditions and dangerous waters they might be treading into? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, is there a way to have someone to understand that, Mr. Baker, to where we would basically say you cannot talk about your specific case, but you can talk about how these issues are affecting or not affecting? Is that where you're trying to get around that?
Well, that's why I say if we want to invite folks to speak, let's find out what they want to speak about. Let's make sure that it touches on one of the issues that's within the commission's authority. And if so, then let's invite them to appear on the agenda and let's discuss it, rather than treading into a conversation with someone where we don't know where it's going to lead to.
Well, Peter, in the sake of time, I guess we should table this discussion and perhaps we can circulate a committee, maybe put one together this month of April and figure out a way to work with the attorney to move forward. I know everybody's time is valuable.
What about this, Quentin? What I hear is your main concern, and I think it's a valid one, is the public should have a chance to give input on our procedures. And I get that. It sounds like a public comment section might not be the appropriate way under the statutes, but what if we asked our city attorney to research possible ways that we could have a regular way for members of the public to say nothing related to a specific case, but we have this issue about, I know you're raising an issue right now about the disclosures about these virtual meetings and administrative like that we make clear they have a manner in which those concerns can get to us.
And if I could interject, they do have this forum already. They have a public comment period created by law with the city council to express their concerns about our procedure or about staff or about the commission even. But that will currently at every city council meeting for someone to appear at that public comment period. And the city, if there is a question about our procedures, obviously the city council would need to hear that as well. So that is available to all members of the public currently.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna table my motion to do that. We'll go ahead on and leave that part open for more research and discussion. If all the commissioners are okay with that. I recognize that this is a very small dialogue between three commissioners. Is there anyone else that would like to weigh in on that? The new commissioner, Scott, Waddell, Lamoth. Is there anyone who'd like to weigh in on any aspect of what we just spoke about?
I think I'd like to hear more. I always err on the side of being very careful not to damage cases, and I think it's for the fairness of the citizen. So it'd be very important to know exactly what we can and can't do.
Okay.
I agree.
And Quentin, if you want to get in touch with me, I like your idea, and I'm happy to collaborate with you to try and see if we can come up with a solution.
All right.
I agree.
We did have a motion, Chair, on the floor though, for the script. We have a revised script that, I was tasked with putting together. Mr. Scott, I apologize. I did not have your email. Forgive me for that. But I will get it to get you a copy of it. Maybe it has recirculated to you already. I don't know. But I think all the other commissioners did get the script that we kind of worked on. And I do have a revision 3 that the council worked on. That kind of came out immediately before the meeting. We had a little bit of time, so I don't know if everyone got a chance to kind of peruse over it.
I saw version 2. I haven't seen version 3.
Yeah, it doesn't say version 3, but it just has, I think he used Microsoft Word Edit, and it's got some things that are deleted, mainly deleted, that were on there.
It was an email that I sent out at 12:34 today. If you have that version, and Commissioner Scott, if you can give me your email address, if you don't mind, if you've got one you don't mind making public, I'll send it to you immediately.
Tony, I just saw your email.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to give a purpose, the reason that I asked to revise the script.
Can I get Commissioner Member Scott? I want to get it, if he doesn't have it, let me get his email and get it to him so he can follow up.
Yes, I don't have it.
Do you mind giving your email publicly and I'll send it to you, or do you want?
I can email you his email right now.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'll send it to him when I get that.
All right, just to, basically the point of the reason why we're pushing for the revision is just out of concern that the people for the public, that the legal verbiage that was on the original one, number one, we never voted in and approved the first script. That was number one. Number two, it was, I felt, and that's one of the reasons why I spearheaded this idea, as well as other commissioners have felt that it was a little too legally verbalized in a sense that was not giving the citizen the full understanding of what's going on. Second, and the third part was, as of now, and maybe Troy can chime in on this, I know now that we are on the side of my screen, it says live on Facebook. And so we're broadcasting via the World Wide Web, which from what after talking to the attorney about is pretty regular. But I do remember, Peter, I guess when you and I when we were still meeting in person, they would take the camera and make a recording. That then recording would, I don't know if it was, I think it was going to a YouTube channel. But with this being on Facebook and the World Wide Web, I wanted to make sure that everyone who was coming before the commission understood that they're going to be broadcasted live via this medium, since this has kind of come around since the advent of COVID. And we also wanted to lighten the words a little bit. That's one of the reasons why myself and others have kind of worked on it. And I wanted to bring it, number one, to make sure that everyone in the commission agreed with it. And B, number two, made sure that the citizens who are going to be coming before us had a true understanding of what their true legal rights were, not just what we were telling them what their rights were. So, and even if you saw at the end before it said, do you consent to this virtual meeting? There was actually a part there where the person could actually ask a question. Per our first script, it was kind of like very straightforward. And after talking to Andrew, he had an excellent idea in the beginning that we kind of had to write it. We had to write it in a language that everyone could understand. And that language needed to almost, I feel, that it had to be written in what we write things in now, in about a 7th or 8th grade level, that could be easily translated. That's another issue that Commissioner Young is really big on, and I agree with him that it has to be easily translated. So that being the case, we kind of came up with revision 2. Revision 3 is what Attorney Baker came up with, and he went ahead on and kind of deleted some things and took some things out. But we wanted to see, I wanted to get some really good dialogue on what the consent verbiage should be as we move forward on it. Is there any questions or anything, any dialogue we should have about that?
So Quinn, I just had one question. I just need some clarification. So the meetings have always been public,
Right.
correct? But have we ever told people that?
Well, what happened was back when we were meeting, Tracy, in the council chambers, there'd be like a camera that was being recorded. And then I reckon, and I guess Troy, you can help me out, they would then take the recording and it would go to, you could go on the city websites to this department and be able to broadcast it. What we're doing differently now is through the Zoom medium, we're posting it to a live social media feed that is owned either by the city or the department and is being broadcasted live. So what that means is for instance, let's say you don't have a Facebook, but someone else does. They can now, kind of share that immediate footprint instantly. As before, when it was being posted on, which was still broadcasted, first of all, it wasn't live, and they would have to have gone to a city server or intranet or internet to be able to get it and post it. I think it was going to YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think it was on the city website, right?
Is that where it was, Troy?
Yeah, so just to get feedback from the staff that you'd requested, we do stream it live on the Neighborhood Development's website, and the recording itself is uploaded to the YouTube channel for the commission for the transparency and documentation purposes. And when we go back to the remote meeting where the commission is in session together, we are making preparations to continue the live streams as well as the recording.
Is it no longer on Facebook Live, or it's also on Facebook Live now too, correct?
It is. That's what I'm monitoring. It's on Facebook Live now. And when we go back into a remote session and live session in chambers, we will continue the Facebook Live, and we'll also continue the recording for transparency purposes for the community.
Right. So for what I was trying to gather is, for what you were asking, Tracy, before the Facebook proponent was not where it is now, but you do know the reaches that Facebook can be. And so it's something that I think, if for nothing else, while we're still gonna be able to broadcast live, which is what we're supposed to do, I think people should be made aware of where it's gonna be and where it is in the internet, in the internet world. So I thought that was something that, if I was coming in front of the commission, I would like to know, that level of information.
Quentin, are you okay with the language in the final version that our city attorney proposed?
Honestly, I think with the work that we did, I like the version that I guess myself and some other commissioners have put together on. It's a little softer version. I think this revision 3 is it deleted the entire paragraph that talked about the being broadcasted live on Facebook, viewed, shared, or posted. And I think that's important because, like I said, we're trying to disseminate this information to people who don't understand and who don't truly know. I mean, there's no way they will know what we know or what city staff know by just showing up to one meeting. They don't know that. And so I kind of like the fact that the revision 2 that myself and, like I said, other commissioners have kind of worked on was softened. And I think if we give too hard of a verbal message in the beginning, it can be used to intimidate people. And I want to make sure that people are not intimidated coming to talk to us.
May I make a suggestion on that point? The reason I struck that paragraph was I was concerned that it gives the impression that the virtual meetings are broadcast and that when we go back to in person, they will not be broadcast. I would propose that we say that this hearing and all hearings of the commission are public meetings, which has always been the case, and may well be broadcast via the internet. And you're letting them know that it may be transmitted over the internet. Which any public meeting may be transmitted over the internet. So I just want to make sure that it's very clear that it's this meeting, any future meetings are public and may be broadcast via the internet. And I'd be fine with that.
Excuse me, but I mean, I that's correct and it's true. But the practice is it's on Facebook. So, you know, and maybe that's going to change and everything, but if I understand what Commissioner Brown was saying, Vice Chair Brown was saying is that, you know, there is Facebook has a gigantic reach, and so we should be ready to say that it has been on Facebook for the foreseeable future. It's going to be on Facebook. You know, I'm not sure why we would be so conservative in saying like, well, it may be publicly available online or something like that. Facebook is a really big deal. So I'm not sure why we wouldn't be saying that just explicitly. This is what, if you're going to come before us, this is what's going to happen to you. Your face is going to be on Facebook.
Forever, by the way. I've done some research, Attorney Baker, post this conversation or pre this conversation. And from what I understand, that once your imprint is on Facebook, it's pretty much out there forever. It's almost virtually impossible to get it off.
And what I want to do is avoid discouraging people from participating in the process, either in this virtual realm or when we go back to in person, by referencing how the city decides to distribute the information, because that's the city's policy to determine how it distributes the public meeting. And I don't want this commission to discourage folks or give some negative inference for how the city has decided to distribute the information. That's a policy decision made by probably a combination of the manager's office and the city council as to how public meetings will be distributed or disseminated to the public.
But we don't encourage the public to participate by under-informing them. That seems to be the flip side of what you're saying.
No, I think informing them that it is a public meeting and may be distributed on the internet is very clear indication that it's available to anyone that has access to the meeting.
Perhaps better verbiage would be, so my understanding is Facebook Live is something that's new due to COVID, that our meetings were always posted on the city website and on YouTube before that as recordings after the fact. Could we put in the laying along the lines of this meeting will be distributed live via Facebook Live? Or something like that?
I think what Commissioner Young, I agree with you, Peter. I think the language was where it should be. But I mean, what Andrew is saying is really what people would, I think a well-informed public does any civil location good. I don't want to under-inform someone, because then that makes, if I was looking at it from a city standpoint, that would make it look as though I'm hiding something. And I don't want to make it look as though the city has to hide. Well, at the same time, if they're over-informed and they understand, I don't see how over-informed you can be if someone kind of lets you know. That's just my opinion at this point right here. What do you think, Peter? Or actually, you know what? It's always us talking. Let's talk to, what do you think? Any commissioner, please chime in. What do y'all think? We need to have some good dialogue on this. This is important.
Quentin, I'll put in one thing, and I do agree with you about getting other commissioners. What if in the first sentence we put something like, so you say requires your consent to proceed with this hearing since the commission is appearing remotely. What if we said something like via Facebook Live? So then they just know it's out there. That's the platform we're using.
I think, well, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think if whatever the commission votes on, I'll agree with it. I just want to make sure that some of the elders that are coming before us understand, because being candidly honest with you, I think some of the elders who own some of these properties are not as well traversed in internet life or understanding what that truly means. And so, you know, for instance, here's an example. There was there's an old person or elderly person who is trying to do what's right, and they don't want to have an imprint like that, not at this level. Then I think they should know they should know every bit of the water drop or the ripple that it could go to. Now, post what you said earlier, you're right. Before we did take videos, but you had to know where you were going to get to see the meeting. Like, it wasn't like, you know, your grandchild wouldn't be able to find that while surfing the web looking for tennis shoes. But nowadays, with these algorithms that Facebook is using, you could very easily be found or put out there. Now, while that's not a negative on the city's end, I don't know if a standard citizen would want that level of what I call internet intrusion to that. Some people
And
don't.
we're all that we know we're Facebook Live, but I guess what you're saying is other
like,
people
doesn't know.
Yeah,
I feel like that is a disservice to that individual because they just don't know. I mean, think of all the people that we've had on here that didn't know.
Can I interject? I know that I have known that it's been on Facebook Live, but I guess this has made me think about it a little more deeply. You know, regular courts do not broadcast the court session on any sort of anything. And there is public accessibility to it. And we do have to be, you know, publicly available to people. However, I also feel like there's, you know, so the people that come before us do not have a choice. They have to come before us. And so they can choose to just wait if they don't want to be on this, but it sounds like it wouldn't really matter anyway, because in the future we're going to be on anyway.
It's definitely a deeper conversation to be had at the higher ups. You're exactly right.
I'm very concerned about it because I feel like it's a safety issue in some ways, you know.
I realize you are literally taking a video camera inside someone's house. Literally, people are being able to see what you have in your house on the World Wide Web. Some people don't want that, and they need to be made aware. I guarantee you there are people right here today that are supposed to have their cases that are listening to this conversation are like, wait, you're going to do what? You're going to put my house on what? Some people don't want that. And we need to be cognizant, Attorney Baker. I think this is very important.
perhaps, and I want to just clarify this factually. My understanding is prior to COVID, I know it was posted online, but we were not on Facebook Live. And my understanding would be, if that's correct, that once we resume in-person meetings, it would be not put on Facebook Live. And I just want to make sure that's accurate.
Is that true, Troy?
No, it's the intentions that it would remain on Facebook Live unless we were directed otherwise.
Okay.
I think all the other meetings before, when we were given the guidance, is the Greensboro Television Network is not available for some boards and commissions. I think zoning, it probably is. But the only way that that someone could interact or stay abreast of the commission's dealings is with it being placed on Facebook. It's about transparency for the public and for their involvement and feedback. Now, nothing prevents someone from pulling the information off YouTube or off of the public record, or pulling a PERT request, or even videoing the live meetings and placing it wherever they would like. The evidence that comes before you about a person's inner dealings with a house, we do have policies and practicalities inside, basically with the inspectors for our industry, to try not to be sure that we're not recording certain security things within a person's home, as well as trying to make sure that we don't have persons in our videos, because they're strictly sent to you presented to you as evidence. But it is public record, and anybody can request it, and we will have to provide to them all photographs, videos, documents that we then have in any case whatsoever. They request all cases or a specific case. I would want to mention to Mr. Chairman, we do have a lot of staff on here. I have spoken with Attorney Baker earlier, where we will have to ask for the meeting to end at 5. And whatever business has not been conducted by 5 p.m., we would ask the commission to continue all that business to the next meeting, and we will place it first.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure that we've even adopted the agenda yet.
Sure.
I have a question for Troy, Peter. Who made the decision to put the meetings on Facebook Live?
That I'm not certain. I'll have to check.
So
Quentin, perhaps given everything, and especially what Troy said, given we got a lot of cases to deal with, this might be something we've raised the issue. Can we circle back next meeting and address it further?
like I said, my motion stays on the floor. If that's what the commission wants to do, I would hope that we would take it to a vote. I feel like this is very important to the business that we're about to hear. I think that's important. I mean, to be candidly honest with you, the fact that we don't know who stated that we should be broadcasting this on Facebook Live, that's some pretty, like, so I'm kind of stuck on, so who said that was okay? If no one knows that who said it was okay, then how do we know it's okay? If no one approved it, there's no signature on it. I grasp what you're saying. I know we have a lot of stuff. I just want to make sure that the public is gravely informed.
And for purposes of this meeting, I think we have made very clear to all the participants in this particular meeting that this is streaming on Facebook Live.
Okay.
And I think this merits a further discussion, but it might need more looking into before we go into it.
Chairman, if I could just add one more thing before I guess we try to move on, though. And this is more, I guess, if we're moving on without really any kind of resolution, but we have residents before us, that I'm not sure what they're going to be read regarding their right to not be here. But I want to say that I think when we have plain English, and I see Council Member Waddell's statement here too, saying something could owners be informed, in a letter that also they're going to appear in Facebook and so on, which I think is a good idea. It doesn't hurt to have these things said more than once. It really helps if it's in, we'll just call it plain English. This is what's going to happen. Instead of the most kind of, and you know how the legal thing is, because at least, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but I've seen where you go to court and I don't know, somebody reads out basically the riot act to you with all these kind of words and stuff. And it just comes down to if the person is sitting there and they've got their wits about them, they're going to go like, can you explain that? And then we go into just explaining the whole darn thing as we're doing right now. So it might be slightly wordier, but if it's broken down in simple English, this is what's going to happen. I think the last paragraph said something like, instead of cutting to the quick, which I guess is legally defensible, do you agree? Do you consent? Blah, blah, blah. The end, we had extra language. Do you have any questions before you consent? All this kind of stuff. And I know, like, because you're going to get people who have their wits about them, who are going to say, like, I really didn't understand half of what you said. Can you repeat it all? So, I mean, again, coming back to this stuff, I think we're supposed to be in as much in the residents and the citizens corner as anybody else is here. And it also has a practical thing of just saving time, so we don't have to go over and over again. This is what all that Latin really means.
Well, and I hear your concerns, and Mr. Young, I think what I'd propose is, I think we've made abundantly clear at this meeting that we are on Facebook Live. For anyone in the public listening, we are on Facebook Live right now. I think Mr. Brown and yourself have raised good issues that merit further discussion. And maybe what we could do is say we've notified the public for this meeting, And between now and next meeting, we're going to work on that language a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. And I would just like to say, can we adopt this worded down version until we can come out with maybe even a better script? I mean, because we did take the time to write it. It's taken 30 days to get here. Multiple commissioners have put their time and energy into it. There's nothing hurting it from us adopting the updated script, which Mr. Baker has. And I think that'll be a good peaceful resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I got two things I want to pass on to you. One, being that y'all are having a discussion about Facebook Live, I feel it necessary that since I have to monitor this live feed to let you know that a person has commented on the Facebook to say keeping them on Facebook facilitates transparency and community involvement. Somebody has posted that while we're in the meeting. The other thing I would like to
Thank you
make
for the feedback from whoever posted that.
the other thing, just Mr. Chairman, I want to make you aware, we only have one, it appears to be one civilian on this call for a case, and they have messaged the inspector that they are wanting to leave. So if you want to get to your case, I thought I would make you aware.
And I do want to be respectful of the citizens that are here to have their cases heard. So
I just want to put it out, Mr. Chairman. I did have a motion on the floor, and I just want to see if it's going to get properly seconded that we adopt the revision until we can come back and perhaps work on some other parts of it. There is a motion on the floor.
Right.
I think,
is there a second for that?
and there's no second that I understand. By the way, just to let you know, the motion is to adopt the revised wording that does include the paragraph. If you decide to move forward, have your case heard today, please be advised that this hearing is being broadcasted live on the internet via Facebook and can be shared, viewed, and posted by anyone in the world. And also at the end, it says, furthermore, your case may be continued. It still talks about how you will still accrue civil penalties, but also adds, like Andrew said, if you have any questions, it will open that up so that a person can truly understand. That's what that revision really is about, opening up so that a person can understand.
Is there a second for that motion?
Before you both may interject,
Okay.
the prior script that was provided by the city attorney's office. The commission obviously didn't vote on it. I suggested at the last meeting that the commission vote. For the vote of the commission is required for the script to be read by the city attorney's office. The city attorney's office is advising the public based upon what law requires. And I wanted the commission to vote because I wanted to get your input. But today, when looking back at the original script that the city attorney's office used, it gave the impression that the public could delay their case until they meet person with the commission, which is why I rewrote the version this morning to say that the remote hearing pertains to the commission, not to the public. And so that was my last revision, was that the minimum standards housing commission requires your consent to proceed with this hearing since the commission is appearing remotely. And I make clear that you may proceed with their case in the future, even if they do not appear in person or if they are only allowed to appear virtually. And I do think it's important that we clarify that at this script. And I intend to read that version of the script today because I don't want to give anybody the impression that their case will be delayed until they can appear in person. That's not the critical element of the law. It's that when the commission appears back in person, very likely when the commission appears back in person, much of the public will be appearing remotely. And at that point, there will be no need for the script. We will proceed with, they'll be affirmed to their testimony and we would proceed.
So to expedite things today, what I'm just going to do is, Quentin, you made a motion. We had a second from Ms. Waddell. I understand the language is the language we're proposing is what was approved by Mr. Baker that he edited today. I'm going to call a question on that and just have a vote and move on to the rest of our cases.
I understand. Thank you, sir. Is anybody going to call to the question?
Oh, sorry, there was a second. I apologize. Commission Member Scott.
I'm gonna vote nay right now only because I don't want to have a rushed vote on my part.
Commissioner Member Waddell,
I say yes.
Commissioner Member Lamont,
I say yes with the caveat that we may have to change this,
I got a funny feeling we're gonna be revisiting this week, this month coming up.
but I agree we should go ahead and say what we need to say.
Commissioner Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Chairperson Isikoff,
Yes, with Ms. Lamoth, same reservations. So that passes by my reading.
Attorney Baker, do you have that revision?
I do.
All right.
Next up, we do need to adopt today's agenda that has been circulated to all the other commissioners. Is there a motion regarding that?
I make a motion that we accept the agenda as it's stated.
Second.
I second it.
Call the question.
Mr. Chairman, staff has changes to the agenda.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I have a couple changes. Item number 6 needs to be moved to the withdrawal section. It is in compliance. And we will only be hearing items number 7, number 8, and number 13.
Item number 7, I think that person is not here and not going to be available. Is that correct, Mr. Neal?
Correct. He didn't have internet service at the time. He was willing to be on the phone with me. He was overhearing everything. He was
All
trying
right,
to
so
make-
if you, Christie, if you would mark number 7 cannot be heard.
So we'll be hearing number 8. The rest of the new cases are those withdrawals. Aside from 8 and 13.
Correct. We did not have consent.
So we'll move those to the withdrawals. So we are only hearing 2 cases today is what I'm showing.
Yes, and number 8, the commission heard last month. However, we did not read violations into the record for 4421. It's actually Cornell Avenue. And so we just need to read the violations into the record.
So let's go ahead and take care of that real quick.
And that's it. They're not on the call, right, Ms. Holt?
Correct. They were on the call last month and you all voted,
Oh, okay.
just doing an administrative function.
And Chairman, I had an item I'd like to add at the end since it's
Oh,
gonna be very short.
yes. And Ms. Lamoth had raised an issue, a motion she wanted to make regarding our procedures for historic properties that I think let's get our cases done real quick and then we'll hear her motion. So I'll put that at the end of the agenda, is discussing our handling of historic properties. Moving on, item 8, I understand we just need to read the violations into the record.
Sorry, point of order. Do we need to swear the city staff in and all those other things?
Thank you, Ms. Lamoth. I apologize. Let's go ahead and swear the city staff.
Good afternoon. Would each of you raise your right hand? Do you testify that, do you affirm the testimony in the following matter, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. And we'll swear in members of the public as their cases come up. The first one is item 8, 4421 Cornwell Avenue. It's a chapter 17 case. I understand we just need to read the violations into the record.
Unsure. Do I need to read in the information for the case?
Yes, read it as a
Okay.
brand new case.
Okay, all right. The date of for 4421 Cornell Avenue, the date of initial inspection was January 6, 2021. The Chapter 17 notice to demolish was issued 1/6/2021. The order expired 1/16/2021. The property did not have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is a school nearby. There is not a history of complete police complaints. We're requesting an order to demolish as the cost of repair is 205% of the tax value.
Thank you. And did we need to read the list of violations that the inspector found?
Yes, we need to follow the procedure completely as if the person were present, because the technicality of reading the information into the record was not done at the last meeting. So all we're doing is we're creating the record that allows you to make a decision in the future. You're not actually hearing the case to make a decision because you have already given a 6-month extension. So this in no way hurts or does anything for the case. We're just putting it on record.
Yep. And we're not voting on anything on this. This is.
That is correct. The minutes will reflect that there's 5 months additional on that extension. Mr. Baker.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. So I apologize. Troy, you said there's no vote on this.
That is correct. We're introducing the case. This was normally where we would have the video playing. And the questions you'd be asking, is the video playing an accurate record depiction of the violations? And then you'd ask the inspector to read the violations into the record.
I'm sorry, I understood that since we were not actually having the hearing, but it'd be continued, is it necessary that we go through that script if there's not going to be a hearing on the order?
That would
My
be,
understanding.
I'll let that be your call.
I don't think we did that last time. I think we're correcting just a procedural mishap.
I apologize. It was my understanding that since it was continued, we would not do this script until we actually had a hearing on the order. But I'm happy to run through the script.
Yeah, and so the problem that we had before is the commission did not have the authority to provide a continuance because the case was not yet legally presented.
Understand. I apologize. Ms. Holt, are you answering the questions for this case? Or the inspector?
The inspector is on the call, but I can answer anything that she doesn't have available.
So the video that we saw, was that a fair and accurate description of the property?
Yes.
What was the date of the last inspection?
Christy.
Inspector Gottlieb.
I'll have to look that up. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
It was 3/2/21.
Thank you. And this was a single unit dwelling?
Yes.
And have the parties of interest been properly served with the notice of the hearing?
Yes.
Now, they were served with our notice of last hearing. Were they also served with the notice of this hearing?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Are there more than 5 minor types of violations or 1 major violation of the minimum housing code?
This is actually not minimum housing code. This was heard as a nuisance case.
I apologize. Would you please read into the record then the violations from the nuisance code?
Yes, sir. Condition or circumstance which exposes the general public to safety, health, or fire hazards. And structures, remains of structures, or lots with a condition that is detrimental, dangerous, or hazardous to the public safety, health, and welfare.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I understand that sets everything right. We don't need to take a vote or anything.
That
Sounds
is
good.
correct.
Our only case today is the 502.
We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. It was misfiled on the agenda, and that's the reason it was not treated as a new case because it didn't appear under the new cases.
No worries. I understand. Next up, so 502 East Whittington Street.
For 502 East Whittington, the date of initial inspection was May 27th, 2020. The hearing was June 25th, 2020. The order to repair was issued June 25th, 2020 and expired July 25th, 2020. The property did not have to be secured. There are children in the area. There is a school nearby. There is not a history of police complaints. We are requesting an order to repair, as the repair cost is 42% of the tax value.
Thank you. And I understand we would read these violations into the record.
And do we swear in the owner?
You do request consent, Mr. Baker, and then if he consents, we'll swear in the property owner.
And who is our property owner?
Gary Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Burkhart. You have a right to an in-person hearing, in-person being for the commission, regarding the code violations on your property. If you choose to have an in-person hearing, your case will be postponed until such time that the city code enforcement department is able to conduct in-person hearings. And again, the in-person refers to the commission. During this delay period, the commission will not make any findings regarding your property or issue any orders against you. If you decide to have the hearing, this is a public meeting, as are all of the commission's meetings are public. And it may well be broadcast live on Facebook Live or some other platform is chosen by the city. If your case is continued by the commission, the civil penalties and the reinspection fees for the monthly safety inspections will continue to be assessed. Before you decide whether you consent, do you have any questions about what's been read to you?
He's talking. I've sent a request to unmute and asked the inspector to call him. I don't know if he's getting my message.
He's reaching for his unmute now.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Did you have any questions about the consent provision?
Let me get this right. So if I want a in-person hearing, there will be no fines, no other anything until that hearing comes available due to COVID.
In-person refers to the commission only. When the commission returns back to an in-person hearing, it may well be because of COVID that you are still appearing virtually. But when the commission is appearing in person, then we would proceed without this consent. But be any fines or penalties that are currently being assessed will continue to accrue. And if an order is entered, it will take into consideration the date that the order is finally entered. Those civil penalties will continue to accrue on your property.
So it sounds like it's to my best benefit to prolong it, try to get things done with no penalties.
If you're able to complete the repairs before the order is affirmed by the commission, then the common practice is that the case is withdrawn. Yes, sir. And without penalties being issued.
That
No.
Well, Mr.
Sorry,
Baker,
go ahead, sir.
Mr. Baker, you just mentioned without penalties being issued. The civil penalties are
I'm
still
sorry.
accruing,
I'm sorry.
and the inspection fees are still being assessed,
y'all hear me?
irregardless of whether it's heard today or in the future.
I apologize.
So, Mr. Burkhart, just to clarify everything that we're all saying, you have the right to have a hearing the next time all the commissioners who are now we're all in our respective places. Next time we get together in City Hall when it's safe due to COVID, we can hear that in person. It might still be virtually as to you, but all of us would be in the same location. the civil penalties that are accruing would continue to accrue. There is a process by which you can get civil penalties reduced to $500 based on how much you've paid for repairs. So does that make sense to you, sir?
It does. And what I'm trying to figure out is when the tenant was there, they would not allow us on the property to perform any repairs due to COVID. So we were, could not enter, could not do anything. We finally had him evicted and released from the property.
And sir, before we delve into the facts of the case, which I appreciate you giving some background, I think what we're trying to say is explaining how we're doing this virtual proceeding due to COVID. And
is there a way I could chime in on this one? Maybe I can help Mr. Burkhart understand a little better.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Burkhart. So what we're doing right here is making sure that you're aware that this is being broadcasted via the World Wide Web. And what they said at that last paragraph was even that your fees and your civil penalties are being assessed. But what you need to know is that they're going to be assessed till it is brought into compliance regardless. So if you do not consent to this meeting, which you don't want to have your case heard, it will be moved to a meeting where all of the commissioners are meeting in person. You still may be virtual, but until then, what it's going to do is still allow you to get some more time before we rule on it. And that is even if we do rule on it, but you're going to be accruing fees and penalties regardless whether we rule on it or not till it's brought into compliance or until we enter an order. But before you can get to that part, you have to either consent or not consent. So basically, if you don't want to be at the meeting, you don't have to consent until we have an in-person meeting because due to COVID.
And that seems like it gives me time, even though penalties are going on.
Mm-hmm.
It would do that. Yes, sir. It would do that. Yes.
Yep.
You're
making the correct analysis.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not trying to get out of repairing the house. Our biggest problem is there's a major foundation problem. I've got to get into it. Go ahead.
And listen to no part of it till you consent. That's what the chair is trying to tell you. So it's best, if you don't know what you're talking about, it's best not to say nothing. You know what I mean?
Okay. I'll wait till there is a hearing with everybody present.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did it make sense to you now? Do you understand what's going on?
Very much so.
All right, there you go.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for being here today.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
I want to take this time to send an appreciation out to the chair and to the other commissioners. I know that my personality can be mildly abrasive, but I think that this is a great example of working together to get the public properly informed. I'm positive that with the help of Mr. Young, Ms. Waddell, Ms. Lamoth, and Mr. Scott and Mr. Isikoff, we can make this commission something that the city is proud of and that people truly have a deep understanding. I just want to make sure I put that in the minutes.
I appreciate that, Quentin, and I'm looking forward to working with you as vice chair.
Oh yeah, that was a perfect example of someone who didn't understand the whole thing because they didn't understand. So I think hopefully Attorney Baker will sign on and help us make the script even better than it is now and more informative.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say something very quick too, an observation, and this is coming on the heels of what Mr. Burkhart was saying. I mean, I'm not trying to negatively criticize any city staff or anything. This is a complicated process. And we're assured regularly that residents out there have this information, they're given this information, they're explained what the process is going to be. But around long enough, some of us on the commission, to see that even with all that said, and again, this is not a negative thing against any of the commissioner, city inspectors or anything like that, but when people come before us, they still don't understand what the process is. And I think what we're all been talking about here today is how can we improve the process so the experience is better for the residents who come before us. When they do come before us, they know exactly what's going on. and they can get right to the thing that you always tell them, Mr. Chairman, about like, hey, we want to know what your plan is going forward. But as we can just see, I didn't follow Mr. Burkhardt, his presence, but I think he heard all the stuff we were saying. And yet he still wanted it. I would be challenged to understand what was going on in our conversations and how to, like, what decision to be made. But you guys broke it down in, I'm going to call it plain English. You can do this, you can do that. We're not prejudicing anything. We're not like giving him legal advice. We're just saying like, these are the rules of the game and you got to choose, And I think that's all fair as long as residents know exactly what the rules are, they explain it, they understand it, and if they come before us, they still don't understand it, I don't think it hurts us to go that extra mile just to say like, did you have any questions? Did you get it? Okay, and then say to Attorney Baker, okay, I consent. Or as Mr. Burkhardt said, I'm going to exercise my right not to do this. I think that's all fair. That's playing with all your cards, showing nobody's trying to be underhanded. The city's being absolutely honest. The inspectors are doing a great job, and we're doing our job. That's what I'm hearing, Mr. Chairman.
And I wholeheartedly agree. And I'll say I know firsthand that lawyers like to talk a lot and we like to use legalese. And I want to make sure that everyone in the commission, that everyone that appears before us understands what's happening. So thank you, Mr. Young. Next up, we have motions to cases. I'll just read the addresses briefly. 826B Avalon Road.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the court reporter is not going to be able to hear you. We barely hear you when you turn to talk.
I apologize. So I'll read the addresses of our motions to withdraw. 826B Avalon Road. We addressed items 7 and 8. We're withdrawing 704 Borders Terrace, 3108 Goodall Drive, 2407 Pineview Drive, 2901 Azalea Drive, 1222 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, 1700 Fairview Street, 2908 Liberty Road, Suite A, and 119 West Green Street. Is there any motions regarding those properties?
We're withdrawing these properties.
Yep.
I make a motion to withdraw these properties.
I'll second that.
With the second from Ms. Lamoth, we'll call the question.
Commission Member Scott,
Yes.
Commission Member Waddell,
Yes.
Commission Member Lamont,
Yes.
Commission Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
and Chairperson Isikoff.
Yes. And lastly, before we go into a couple other administrative things, motions to rescind. Those properties are 5703 Green Meadow Drive, 1830 McKnight Mill Road, 605 Martin Street, 625 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, 219 Linden Street. And that's it for the rescinds. Are there any motions?
Motion that we rescind the addresses as you stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the question.
Commission Member Scott,
Yes.
Commission Member Waddell,
Yes.
Commission Member Lamont,
Yes.
Commission Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
and Chairperson Isikoff.
Yes. So that passes unanimously. Lastly, we have 1316 West Florida Street. That's a housing rehab lead safe Greensboro case, which Frankly, I'm unfamiliar with how to address that because I know that's a new procedure for us.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, several meetings ago, y'all had requested that we follow a similar process as we do for cases that we do not refer to the commission because they're involved in the rehab program. So any cases that are currently with the commission, if we find that they're eligible for the rehab program or they're involved in lead, then we ask the commission to move those cases to what is known as a ledger for rehab at the bottom of your agenda. And we only publish those on your agenda the first month of each quarter, just so that if you're following a particular property and you believe it's in rehab, you can look at it at any point in time. It is not before you to make any decisions. It is just a placeholder, which I believe Commissioner Lamont wants to have a discussion with you about adding an additional placeholder. We would treat it in the same manner. No action is being asked of you except in the 4 original categories. So we may put a note as a line that separates the two and say for your information only, so that you'll know no actions being asked of you, because we're not going to be attaching any information on those cases to your packets.
Understood, and thank you for that clarification, and thank you for the notification on that. So I don't see any reason for discussion. This case, we're just being notified it's in the rehab progress. The last thing on the agenda is Ms. Lamoth had a motion that she wanted to present, and we may have some discussion for. So, Ms. Lamoth.
Thank you.
Excuse me for just a second, if I may. All city staff is excused. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So after having a long discussion with actually with Peter and with Benjamin Briggs at the Historic Preservation, and then with Troy, and my own knowledge of the historic tax credit process, I wanted to bring this forward because we do have situations, and we have one house in particular that we are all aware of, Mr. Brown, that really, you know, once you go through the process of the historic tax credits, and it's kind of a misnomer to call it tax credits because it's a little bit bigger than just that. In the process to qualify for these tax credits, you have to spend about $5,000 with the state park and national historic preservation commissions, and you have to apply for these, and then you have to get approval. So you go through this process of getting approved, and in that process, you also have to have a plan of action. You have to tell them exactly how you're going to restore the property if you're restoring it, and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of rules there. They have a timeline. They have to go before the State Preservation Commission based on their time, whatever their time frame is, and they're held accountable to these restorations. Now, their restorations and our requirements are two totally separate things. However, you know, I'm also of the opinion that if you own your house and your house is safe and secure from anyone getting injured in it or around it, then you should be able to work on your house as long as you want. That's my personal opinion. So that is where all of this comes from. But now I'll read the motion. I'd like to make a motion that all historic houses that are under the process of state historic preservation tax credits to add them to the quarterly section of our agenda, similar to that of those in the restoration programs. This will only apply to houses that have applied for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places and are under renovation with supervision from the State Preservation Commission. At any time the home or building is removed from the State Preservation Commission's purview, the process will then revert to our normal process of hearing the case. And that's
Thank
it.
you, Ms. Lamoth. And I'll say I second that motion, but I do want to open it for discussion before we call the question.
So why I agree. why did you make this motion? What is the reasoning for it?
Well, I just feel that, you know, these houses are different in that they have this other, similar to the restoration projects. They're going through a process. It's going to take more time because the expectations of their process is different from what we're requiring for minimum housing standards. And they generally need more time. They're also working on their houses. So it's not like, you know, it's not like we're fighting a landlord who's ignoring a problem. We're having to see people over and over and over again. And it seems like, you know, a little bit of a time taker from us when we have other issues that we should probably be addressing.
Did they give a amount of time through the State Preservation Historical Society? Because correct me if I'm wrong, this house has been on our ledger since 2014, correct?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, they have a similar system where you have to go and give an update and you have to tell them why you need more time. So they have to go get approval on that to be able to keep that status. So
do you know the average amount of time? And I'm only asking for the sake of asking. I'm pretty sure that everyone agrees and likes to work with you, Tracy, so it's not a problem. I guess the reason why I know what this is stemming from, the fact that oftentimes I use that as the benchmark structure for when we give out extensions. I'm glad to hear that you state that that you believe that people should be able to work on their houses as long as you want. I agree as well, as long as it's safe and no one's in trouble. I just want to make sure that in all transparency, everyone's being treated fairly. I want everyone to have the same opportunity. I don't want one group, and candidly, honest about it, Mr. Scott, I'm using your name because I know you're new to this board. I want to make sure, especially from my district, since we see me and Mr. Waddell are from District 1, since we see 97% of the cases come from our district, I want to make sure that not one demographic, race, color, creed is getting a better shake or getting more time or getting treated different than anyone else. And that's why oftentimes I use it as the benchmark, because there is no house in anything that we have allowed to go for 7 years. There's just not one. But at the same time, you know, we hold the nails to certain people, and I just want to make sure, like, we're giving that to somebody, historic or not. He still had 7 years. You can do a lot of things in 7 years. 7 years, a child can graduate from high school. So I just want to make sure that everybody's fair across the board, and we're not just giving preferential treatment because they decided to take on a project that they didn't realize was going to take a decade. But I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I'd love to hear Ms. Waddell say, because I know she's from District 1.
Well, just before that, could I just say, in some ways, I think this would spur people and encourage people to seek out these programs, because these programs do have other opportunities, and maybe they won't take 10 years to do. I would hope not. But, you know, with these parameters, it's not just saying this is a historic house, so we're going to give them extra time.
Right.
Like, we're not giving them a free pass just because they live in an old house.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It certainly does.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Waddell.
Since I haven't had much experience with historic houses being listed, and my first question is there a list that I can obtain or be sent to us so that we know which house is coming up to be historic? And I even have a question. There was a house on Summit Avenue, the big white house on Summit Avenue, Yanceyville, and some of that was torn down. And I thought that was a historic house.
It was.
So I didn't understand why it was torn down.
It was completely illegal.
That's right.
It was completely illegal.
It didn't meet the safety requirements, Ms. Waddell, that you could allow it. Unlike this house that we're talking about here, where they have a private investor that is willing to sink the funds into it, they couldn't find anybody that could do that. And it legit, if you were going on the second floor, in some places you'd be in the first floor. You would have fallen right through the floor. And so that's why I got demolished. No construction contractor wanted to take that job on. And so the city had no choice but to demolish it. That's what happened to it.
Okay, so
He didn't do it. It was a
We-
private contractor.
but I wasn't on the board and you didn't know that no city contractor would take that on. I was just really upset that it was torn down.
There's no problem. Yeah, the contractor the private contractor didn't do good business.
Okay,
He didn't do right. That's what happened. And that's how they lost it.
okay.
How about
I'd like to ask, like, Troy, what's your experience with these houses? Like, in my time, we've only seen the one house come before us, but like, are there lots of them out there that are, that fall under your purview?
Just as yours, in my time here, I've only seen this one. That is actually a code case that's coming through. If we do have a property itself that is involved in a rehab program, we're holding those cases. We won't refer those to the commission. The city ordinance allows us to work through the rehab program with those properties. However, once we lose all extension opportunities that the ordinance allows staff to have, we have to forward those on to the Housing Commission. And I think what Commissioner Lamont had shared with me was being that you are allowed by your rules in the boards and commissions, you are allowed to treat a historic structure differently than you treat all the other structures. So she had asked me that if you do have a code case coming to you of a structure in the historic district, once we go through the new case process, read the violations into the record, that at that time or whenever you order it, we can place that structure on that list at the bottom. So then what you're doing is you can at any time you'll be able to see how many you've got there. But as of right now, I'm not aware of any other historic properties that is on our active code list. That doesn't mean there's not. I'm not aware of any.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Is there any further discussion on Ms. Lamoth's motion? Seeing none, we have a motion and I seconded it, so I'll call the question.
Commission Member Scott,
Yes.
Commission Member Waddell,
Yes,
Commission Member Lamont,
Yes.
Commission Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown.
yes.
Thank you, sir. And Chairperson Isikoff.
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And I wanted to say we had two very good ideas from two commission members today, and I really appreciate the discussion and the engagement to try and make this commission run better. I just really appreciate that from everyone. So there being no further business before the commission, does anyone have any motions?
I like to make a motion that we adjourn. I guess, yeah, make a motion. I reckon I'll be hearing from Attorney Baker here soon, so we can start working on the script.
And I'll second that. Let's call the question.
Commission Member Scott,
Yes.
Commission Member Waddell,
yes.
Commission Member Lamont,
Yes.
Commission Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes, sir.
and Chairperson Isikoff.
Yes. By unanimous vote, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.